All right, we've finally been put out of our misery with the last session of Parliament closing off this week. It's usually a time when the hours are long and tempers can become a little bit frayed. And that certainly seems to be the case with the government, as I've just described. They have had a shocker of a year. Their policy positions, their policy execution, their affinity or lack of it with the Australian people, they've all been appalling. And it's left the coalition in a much stronger position than when the year began. And personally, I'd like to think a lot of that resurgence was built around the success of the No campaign and the fact that Peter Dutton and the National Party campaigned so strongly for that result. But there are other areas where they're leading too. In Queensland, LNP Senator Gerard Rennick joins me now to talk about some of them. Senator, great to have you on the show. I've got to kick it off with this though. It's been a busy day in Queensland politics. Anastasia Palaszczuk is set to resign as Premier at the end of the week. Here she is announcing a departure.
Thank you to my cabinet and my staff. Thank you to the Labor Party, to all of our frontline workers, but most of all, thank you to every single Queenslander. Sorry. It's been the greatest on my life, and our best days are well and truly ahead of us.
Gerard, it's been a long time coming. This is good news, isn't it, for Queensland and the LNP up there?
Well, I mean, that depends on the outcomes going forward. Ultimately, all governments should be judged by their ability to produce, essential services and provide essential services to their people. And the question is, will the new leader of the Labor Party be any better than the last leader in making sure that we reduce waiting lists, reduce crime in the state, reduce energy prices in the state, improve our education services? So for me, coming into an election year, and I think for many other Queenslanders, what we want to see is effectively a government that can provide those essential services. And it's fair to say that under the last 9 years of the Labor government, we've seen a decline in the provision of essential services, and it just hasn't been good enough.
Yeah, it's not good enough, and that's why we need a very strong opposition to put forward an alternative government vision. The Coalition have certainly put forward an alternative vision, and most notably in their proposal to lift Australia's nuclear ban. I have to point out they did so well before the climate alarmists at COP28 became pushing for the same thing. But that decision at COP28 makes the position of the Labor government to block the nuclear industry look outdated and out of touch. I reckon the Coalition's on a winner here. How do you feel about it?
Oh, I feel very strongly about it, Cory, and I think we are on a winner. And it's been a long time coming for Australia, to actually have a major party come out and support nuclear unequivocally, and that's what Peter Dutton's done, and that's a credit to him because it's a great way to wedge the left on, and it's their ideology, not our ideology, on the whole climate change ideology and the greenhouse effect. So if they're really serious, if the left are really serious about reducing carbon emissions, there is no better way to do that than nuclear energy. Now, from the point of view of the right, my view is, well, nuclear energy is a very cheap form of energy, and it's used in many other countries. We're one of the few major Western countries that don't have a nuclear power reactor, and I think it's both good for our energy as well as our security.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I read some reports the other day, 4 out of 5 Australians are on board with this. So I can't understand the intransigence of the minister. Anyway, watch that space. We might get a change yet. I've been one of them who's been targeting Australia's terrible migration policy for years now. I don't think it's been sustainable, nor in our national interest. The Coalition, I think, have seen the light, and it appears the government are now under pressure to realise their immigration levels are actually making everything worse. We don't know all the details about what's going to be in the release tomorrow, but we can speculate here, Senator, is this a good move for Australia?
Well, it's a good move in the sense that it's in the right direction, but of course the devil's in the detail, and we need to see actually what scaling back means, because we have at a very high level at somewhere between 500,000 and 600,000 people, which is almost 3 times higher than what it was when I became a senator 4 years ago. And I think the immigration rate under the Howard era was running at around 150,000 people. I'll stand to be corrected on that. So is the Labor Party going to scale back immigration from the high level of 500,000 or 600,000 to 300,000 or 400,000? Or are they going to go back to what I consider to be more sustainable levels at around 100,000 to 200,000 and actually deal with the real issue in our labour workforce, where we've got too many people pushing pens and working in childcare centres or going to university for too long, and focus on getting our young people back on the tools, because that to me is the real issue. And just having high immigration to deal with our skills shortages is masking the issue of our education system, which again, another report came out last week that said we're declining in our education standards. And they're the things we really need to look at. So it's all very good scaling back immigration, but the question is by how much? And then what are we actually going to do about our own labour workforce and making sure that we train our own children to have the skills necessary to make sure that we can stand on our own 2 feet as a sovereign country.
Exactly right. And let's get not only our kids back to work, let's get some of the 5 million people on welfare support back to work, and let's get some of the oldies who want to work and supplement their pensions along the way. Let's make use of the greatest resource we have in this country, and that is the Australian people. Unfortunately, Gerard,
that's exactly right.
Labor are making everything worse for the Australian people, I reckon. And most notably, that is in the upward pressure on interest rates and the cost of living. Now, there's some new data from the RBA. It shows 1 in 50 borrowers are in severe financial stress. So if this continues, or indeed if it gets worse, as there's now speculation rates could rise even further, these people are going to sheet home the blame straight to the Albanese government come election time. And that's spelling disaster for them right now, isn't it?
That's exactly right, Cory, and it won't be just those 1 out of 50 people. It will be with mortgages. It's impacting everyone, whether it's through higher energy prices, higher cost of living, and should I say higher taxes as well. One of the things that I don't think, and we've really got to pan home to Labor next year, is the fact that in the last 2 budgets, the Labor government dropped the low income tax offset. So that means the bracket creep, and given that we've got inflation running at between 5 and 6%, bracket creep has been jumping by that same amount. That means people, especially on lower incomes, are paying much higher taxes. So not only are they paying, higher energy prices and higher cost of living and higher interest rates or higher mortgage repayments, they're actually getting less take-home pay in real terms. And that's not good for the country, and it's certainly not fair on the people who are trying to get ahead.